We're back, and we're doing our radio checks. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Check.
I can hear you.
Let's go hunting.
These will be useless.
How you doing? This is Sean McVeigh with Sean's Outdoor Adventures, and I want to welcome you to this episode in the Map Reading Challenge. As you know, I chose 3 men to join me on a map reading challenge. And in this episode, we're going to focus on Pat Mitchell.
Pat Mitchell, Lynchburg, Virginia. And my general feeling about this trip is excitement. I'm really excited to meet Sean and be a part of this.
Now, I met with these guys in August, and we looked at some maps, we did some scouting, we camped out, had a great time. Pat had some great stories that he shared with us around the campfire, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But let me first start off with, when I picked these guys, I took applications, and then I picked these guys to be in this particular hunt. I gave them all a call. And I had been emailing back and forth with them and things like that before calling. So they were all kind of anticipating a call to find out whether or not they were even chosen. But here is a few excerpts from my phone call with Pat. Calling some people.
Okay, I will. Hold on.
Hello. Hello.
Is this Sean?
Yeah, man.
Hey.
What's up?
Hey, man.
You're on vacation.
Yeah.
Nice.
Spur of the moment vacation. I'm taking advantage of seeing family, but also I just moved from Illinois to Virginia.
Right.
And so I'm going this weekend for a 3-day hunt.
Nice. Now, Pat is a great example of how difficult it can be to consistently harvest deer. And what we're going to hear is him share the story of how he got into hunting, was immediately successful, and then went through a long dry period. And I want you to hear this story because, especially if you're new to hunting, which a lot of my viewers are, it's good to hear that this happens to a lot of people, and it's difficult to get really good at hunting. So here, let's listen to Pat share a little bit of his story of his background with hunting.
All right. Yeah, I wouldn't trade this experience for the world, but it makes hunting now really, really hard. Because the very first 2 times I went hunting, first time I just went out with a bow, had shot it for like 2 weeks, recovered it out of my parents' attic, fixed it up, and within 2 hours, a little 9-pointer walked right in front of me.
Wow.
So hit him. That was my first deer, first shot, everything. 2 or 3 weeks later was shotgun season. Went back to the same woods, hunted for about 3 days, and on the 3rd day, 2 hours into the morning, a doe was right under me, and I couldn't get my gun on her until she like heard the gun, and she ran away. But as she was running, she passed up a buck at like 80 yards away. And I already had my crosshairs on her, so I just moved it over to the buck, and he gave me a shot, and I took him, and it was awesome.
Wow.
It's a huge 8-pointer, really widespread.
That's a nice
And
way
then
to start things off. You get
I've
spoiled.
probably gone like 50, almost like 60 times after that, and not gotten a single shot. The closest I came, there was literally 20 deer. I found a feeding spot, and 4 came in, and then like just they started piling in, and they're all around me, and I couldn't get a single shot.
Yeah. Truly, that is beginner's luck.
Yeah, oh, totally. I don't deny that, but I definitely after the second deer, people were commenting on my Facebook after the pictures, like, "Oh, you're so lucky." And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I just know what I'm doing. I did some good research.
Okay, so when hunt day finally arrived, where we went back to our spot that we had scouted out, we met up in the middle of the day on a Thursday afternoon. We got ready immediately. We actually set up our tents real quick, and then we got ready to head to the woods. And I have to be honest, I had a lot of confidence in the spot that Pat picked for his first evening hunt. I really thought he was going to get a shot off that first evening, and I probably would have picked about the same location if I was hunting in his particular area that he was designated to hunt in. I will say 2 things though. One, As far as the wind direction, I'm not sure that the wind direction was really working well for this particular spot. So maybe what would have been something to look at would have been I call it call an audible at the last minute, where you're planning to do this, the wind's not cooperating, so let's try this instead. Always have a backup plan. But I'm not sure if that played anything into his hunt. However, as you're going to see, he did encounter a black bear on his hunt. And I've experienced this on multiple occasions, and he did as well. You're going to see, as the bear was going by, it caught the area where he walked in, and then it basically stalked him to the tree he was in. And the bear was getting ready to go up the tree and then saw Pat up in the tree, and that scared the bear off, fortunately. But bear are very curious animals, and they're always on the prowl for food. If a bear's up walking around, it's because that bear's probably looking for food, especially, during the day like that. And so when they see or smell something that wasn't there before, like they smell our tracks, well, hey, what does this lead to? Is there anything at the end of the trail that I can eat? And bear are usually afraid of us, but in that situation, and fortunately for Pat, in that situation, that bear was afraid of him and left. However, virtually every time I've ever seen a black bear during a hunting situation, I have not seen deer after that. Because the areas that I hunt have a very low number of deer typically, and they avoid the bears, because bear do chase deer and bear do eat deer, especially the fawns. So that may have played a large factor in why Pat did not actually encounter any deer on that first evening, that first hunt. Hunt number 1. So let's bump ahead to the following morning, hunt number 2 of Pat's hunt. And I will say this, throughout this whole map reading challenge, the temperatures were extraordinarily hot. I mean, we were hitting even in the 90s in the state of Maryland during the day on 1 or 2 of the days. It was actually the hottest conditions I have ever personally hunted in. And about almost midday, late morning, Pat had an encounter with a deer, and I'll just show you some of the footage of what took place.
All right, the time is 11:28. I just got out of my stand. About 15 minutes ago, I shot a doe. Here's where my stand location was. And she was coming from that way with 2 fawns. She looked to be pretty small, but we'll see when I get her. Funny thing is, it's 11:30. I planned on packing up at 11, but I pushed it for a couple more minutes, and at about 11:05, 11:10, I took out my breakfast, which I never ate, and ate that in the stand while reviewing my map, because I didn't see anything all morning. So, anyway, I get done looking at my map, I make a new game plan. I put my arrows away, put my bow away, and then I heard what I thought was another squirrel, so I grabbed an arrow just for the heck of it, and sure enough, it was 3 doe coming through the woods, and just got to the first bit of blood. Lots of blood. Looks like a pretty good blood trail, so I'm going to follow it and see if I can find anything. She went that way. Alright, did not take very long. Found her laying down. I'm going to go inspect the wounds. Holy cow. That's not good. Here she is. This is the problem with doing hunting season in September. Flies.
Being as hot as it was, by the time that Pat got to the deer, there were actually flies all over it. He was at the deer within 15-20 minutes of when he made his shot because he watched the deer go down. And it was already covered with flies. This became a learning curve for a lot of us. I had never experienced anything like this, I guess because I've never hunted in that kind of heat. But now I know going into the future, I need to have a plan in place to handle a situation like that. So if you're ever hunting in warm conditions, have a plan ready to go in case you are dealing with a large number of flies like we were in that situation. In fact, let me just jump ahead and say the following day when I was out hunting, when it got to be about 10:30 in the morning, I was just listening. I could hear the flies coming out, and I was up in a tree stand and I was seeing flies kind of going around, which I had never paid attention to or observed before. But from now on, especially in warm conditions, I will be paying attention. And at that point, when that was happening, I got down, hunt was over because I didn't have everything I needed to really deal well with it. But in the future, here are some of the things that we did, and here are some of the things you can do in case you're in a situation like that. One, I had brought a couple pounds of salt in case anybody shot a trophy animal, and I needed to cape it out and salt the hide to help preserve it till they got home. So what we did is we took the salt and we started to treat the meat with it because the flies were landing on it and laying eggs. So now he's got fly eggs on his deer meat. So we're treating it with the salt to create an unfavorable environment for the eggs, having them covered up in salt. That's how we handled it, and we were able to preserve and save a good bit of the meat that we were dealing with. In the future, however, here are some ideas for handling it. One, they do make mesh bags large that will fit around a whole animal carcass. So one, you can get one of those around it as quickly as possible so the flies can't actually directly get onto the animal. Also, if you're quartering it out, I have a video that I did on how to butcher a deer on the ground in the woods. And part of it is you skin off the hide and then cut off the meat. Well, you can skin off very small portions, quickly cut off the meat and get it in a bag and immediately close up the bag so the flies can't get in there. That's another approach. Another approach would be I like to carry those 55-gallon heavy-duty trash bags in my backpack. I usually like to put 2 or 3 in there. If your deer, in this case, a doe, will a lot of times fit into one of those. If you can fit your deer into one of those, get it in there, scare all the flies off the meat and get it in there and seal up the bag to keep the flies off. We had a deer cart on hand that I had brought. In that situation, you get it in the bag, you put it on the deer cart, you wheel it to the car, you get it in the car, and then you drive somewhere else. One of the guys jokingly said we should put it in the back of a pickup truck and had Andrew butchering it up while Pat was driving around. But that's actually a decent idea in the sense that you get it in the vehicle and you drive it away somewhere else. And then if you have a pickup truck with a cap on it or something like that, just get in there and take care of the deer right in the back of the truck and get it in the cooler, so the flies aren't getting in there. So that's another idea. Here is yet another idea, and this is something I learned when I first was learning how to butcher deer. Actually, when I was learning, I purchased a video from the Pennsylvania Game Commission that was produced by an award-winning chef at that time, and he told you how to butcher a deer. One of the things he recommended was letting the deer hang for 2 weeks to let the meat season, which all the beef you buy in the store hangs for 2 weeks before you purchase it. And one of the tips he gave, if your deer's, let's say your deer's hanging in a shed, and the temperatures are 30 to 40 degrees, but let's say the temperature comes up to like 50 degrees or even 60, he was saying, well, you got to deal with it. And if you're having an issue with flies in those warmer temperatures, he said, get cooking oil, heat it up on the stove, not to the temperature that would cause deep frying, but get it hot and put hot peppers in it. So they're like kind of slow cooking in the oil. Again, not deep frying, just cooking. You're cooking those peppers in there. So you cook those hot peppers in there like all day, and you use that oil with a paper towel and you rub it on the meat. And that oil with the hot pepper in it prevents the flies. It's an unfavorable environment for them. They won't land on the meat. So, with that being said, if you harvest a deer in a situation like that, maybe have a flask in your vehicle of this type of oil that you can go and get, or if it's not a glass one, but a container that you can carry out with you. And if you have to deal with it in the woods, this is just a way to help you preserve your deer meat so that the flies are not negatively impacting it. So when you're going into a hunt like that, if you know the temperatures are going to be hot, close to 90 degrees, have a plan in place to deal with something like flies, because you don't want that to negatively impact your deer meat if you make a harvest. So just be ready for it. Now that I've covered that and one of the big take-home lessons that I took from Pat's hunt, let's go to my final interview with Pat. And keep in mind that this interview took place like over a month or about a month after we were on the actual scouting mission. So we bring up that story of when he first got into hunting just to talk about it. And I will also say this. If you remember from that story, he hunted whatever it was, 30, 40, 50 times, a lot of times, and didn't even see a deer or didn't have a chance at a deer. And here he is on hunt number 2, like the first morning of the whole challenge, and he harvests himself a deer after reading the maps and putting himself in a spot. That is awesome. I mean, a little bit of knowledge in how to read maps, and it goes a long way. So let's check out the interview with Pat as we were wrapping up his hunt. All right, Pat, so you just completed your first map reading challenge. How do you feel right now?
Feel really good. Harvested a deer.
Yeah, so what's the biggest take-home for you out of this whole experience?
Definitely the topography. After watching that DVD that you gave me, just being able to look at a map and put X's on it and go specifically to those places to scout is just revolutionized.
That's awesome. I know that you're still fairly new to hunting, and you contacted me, I guess it was last year, asking for some hands-on help with the whole thing. You started out in Illinois. You got a couple deer out there. One was a bow, one was a gun. Is that?
Yep. The first one was a bow. Definitely just luck. I found a deer trail, sat up on it, and the next morning a buck, an 8-pointer, just walked right in front of me. 2 weeks later in gun season, same thing. It was a 4-day hunt, and on the last hunt, just found a deer trail, set up a stand, and a huge wide 8-pointer. Right in front of me. So
yeah, and then after that, what happened? What was your hunting life
After
like?
that, I hunted for the rest of the season in Illinois. So for about a month and a half, 2 months, didn't see anything. Came to Virginia, hunted the entire deer season in Virginia, didn't see anything. Probably went out like 25, 30 times. Hours and hours spent in the stand, just wasted.
Yeah, it's tough and it's frustrating. So somewhere along the way, you got in touch with me and asked me for some help, which is one of the reasons why I picked you for being on the show. Like from then to now, it sounds like you feel like you've gotten some help. The videos help. It's now in I used to have it in DVD. I gave you one of the copies of that, but now it's just a digital download. And it's weird that this keeps kind of coming up. I didn't intend for it. I mean, the map reading challenge was just to come out and have fun with people and share with them and teach them. But it almost sounds like we're selling the video, but really what it comes down to is if you learn how to read topography, it revolutionizes your hunting. And it doesn't matter where you learn it from. You don't have to learn it from the one I made. Just learn how to read topography, because if you can do that and understand how the game are going to use that, you're going to be seeing game like Andrew, bear, bobcat, deer, everything all in the same spot. And it's because they're all utilizing the landscape to their advantage the same way. And if we learn how to read that and predict that, you had first night, bear coming up your tree.
Yeah, and I saw a turkey at that same spot.
Bear and turkey utilizing the same. I'm thinking the only reason why you didn't have deer movement might have been partly because of the bear, because the deer are afraid of bear. And one of the guys, was it you that saw a bear chasing a deer?
Andrew saw the bear.
Okay, Andrew had. So the bear do chase the deer, and especially the fawns. They do a lot of predation on the fawns, and so when the deer smell the bear, there's been so many hunts where if I see a bear, I don't see deer, or if I see deer and then I see a bear, I don't see any more deer. So it could have been related to that, but I'd say. What is the biggest thing you would tell somebody else if they wanted to go try their skills at a wilderness map reading challenge? What's the biggest thing you would tell them?
Definitely take the time to learn how to read topography. I thought I knew a lot about topography. I knew how to, navigate through the mountains, but until you kind of connected the deer movement and the topography together,
Right.
Really revolutionized.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I think you were saying it. It's funny hearing your reaction because when we were here for the scouting and I was going over the maps, you were like, "Oh, that blew my mind." And then when you were talking about when you watched the video, it was like, "Oh, that blew my mind." It's kind of funny, and you don't actually. You can just to share with you out there who's watching, you can learn this on your own. I'm self-taught with the map reading. For years and years and years, I went out, studied deer trails, looked at how it translated on maps and how they were utilizing it, and because I'm always fighting to become a better hunter. Every time I step in the woods, I want to leave a better hunter than I start out, and that's really how it all began. And so if you're willing to put the work in, you can learn how to do it. But anyway, Pat, I'm so grateful that you were part of this, and I'm looking forward to. We were talking about it. Maybe we'll come back as a group in the spring and see if we can get on those turkeys. So stay tuned for that. Till then, take care. God bless. Okay, the last thing I want to do in this video, and I'm looking at a piece of paper here because I have everything written down to make sure I don't miss any of the details, is let's tally up what Pat's score was for his first map reading challenge. Now, the score system, if you want to download it in a PDF, I have it on my website. You can go there and get it. And if you do a map reading challenge, you can go to that same page and share your map reading score with us so we can hear how you did. But let's check out Pat's score. Okay, so he harvested his doe on hunt number 2. That's 20 points. The distance was less than 20 yards, so he gets 25 points for that. It was a doe under the age of 4.5, so he gets 40 points for that. The shot placement was a long hit, 25 points for that. And he gets a 10-point bonus because he did the hunt on public land for a total of 130 points. Congratulations, Pat. That's awesome. After going all that time without getting a deer and going out on your second hunt on a map reading challenge and harvesting, congratulations. That's something to be proud of. So thanks, Pat, for joining us and sharing that success with us. And I thank you for tuning in and watching with us. And good luck. If you get out there on a map reading challenge, I pray that you're as successful as Pat was. Until then, take care and God bless.